victorious for the second time in a new but growing event called the Race Across America. It may be sport's ultimate endurance ordeal, a 3,000-mile ride from the shores of the Pacific to a boardwalk by the Atlantic. As a tiny knot of well-wishers moved in to congratulate Haldeman, I asked him if he would look forward to the following year's race.
Well, kind of, yeah.
As much as is humanly possible, right?
Right.
Congratulations again on another great show.
Thank
Haldeman had dominated a field of 4 riders when the race was first held in 1982. There were 12 entries in 83, but the result was the same. 1984 would be different. Now 23 riders had gathered their resources for another coast-to-coast race. Some of them lured only by the novelty and outrageous difficulty of the challenge, but a select few prepared to do battle with the leaders across 3,000 miles of American highway racers. 19 men and 4 women gathered on a pier in Huntington Beach, California, to await the start of a journey like no other in sports or in life. Their mission, the third Race Across America, a continuous ride through 15 states across 3,047 miles of city streets, dirt roads, and interstate highways. If, as they waited under the California sun, the riders let their minds wander into the days and miles ahead, they might have thought of the beginning 2-day battle with desert heat, or the long climb through the mountains of Utah and Colorado. They might have dreamt ahead to Loveland Pass, a 12,000-foot-high stretch of mountain road at the top of the Rocky Mountains. Or perhaps they saw beyond the mountains, to the hypnotic peace and pastorality of the prairies, the waving fields of wheat that would lead them to the Mississippi River, 2,000 miles from the pier at Huntington Beach. And if they were among the few who had made the trip before, they might have looked beyond the big river to envision the beauty and treachery of West Virginia's hills, or the historic symbols of eastern Pennsylvania, which would tell them that the finish in Atlantic City was less than 200 miles away. But for now, Atlantic City was just a daydream. Reality was that at least 9.5 days of bicycle riding lay ahead. 9.5 days or more of eating on the bike, sleeping on the side of the road, and promising yourself you would never try it again. Now, as 23 riders receded into the tunnels of their own final self-examination, the third Race Across America began.
5, 4, 3, 2.
23 men and women pushed forward on their pedals and headed east. They had been brought to this experience by 23 separate paths, though no one had been lured by money or prizes, for none were being offered. One was a Belgian tour veteran who wanted to see the United States, one a former minor league ball player. Another, a professor of psychology. There was one who might be too inexperienced to win, and another some thought to be too old. There was the man who had finished first in both previous races and was expected to do so again. They left Huntington Beach amid 5,000 California bike riders who had turned out to share the experience of the race's beginning. The first 68 miles would be paced, so there was plenty of time for the racers to talk as they pulled away from the pier.
You wouldn't believe how many Baskin-Robbins stores we called trying to find Oregon blackberry. We came up, the closest I could come up with is wild mountain blackberry.
There were final words of advice from those who had made the trip to those who hadn't.
It's also a little scary because I know how bad it's going to hurt.
How did you hear
Nice open area right there.
I see it in the cycling book.
Yeah, we better watch it.
Together they rode out of the suburban sprawl of the California coastline and toward the barren desolation of the desert. There were 5 hours of paced riding ahead before the racers who were interested in leading could break away from the pack. It was Sunday, August 19, 1984. For 23 men and women, just the first day in a journey which would tell them more about this country and about themselves than they had ever known before. I'm Jim Lampley. Together with Diana Nyad, I covered the first 2 transcontinental bike races in 1982 and 1983. Now we set out to cover the third Race Across America. With an experienced crew of technicians and support troops, we had learned to expect the unexpected from a sports event, which is so much more than a sports event. It is an adventure in life. Seen through the camera of the late Ansel Adams, America's desert is an abstract maze of lines and shadows. But to the riders in the Race Across America, it was a welcome oasis for minds and bodies conditioned to expect jagged, debilitating heat. The unusually rainy summer of 1984 had left the desert uncharacteristically green, and at under 80 degrees Fahrenheit, it was more comfortable than the time of year, and past experience had given the racers the right to expect. So they made good time as they rode through the California desert towns of Victorville and Oro Grande, headed toward Barstow, the first real landmark on the map. By late afternoon of day one, the race had already begun to take shape.
It's now just a little bit before 9 o'clock Eastern time, a little before 6 o'clock here in the California desert on the first day of the race. And already, although the race has only been in full swing for a few hours, the riders are strewn along more than 20 miles of highway. By tomorrow morning, it'll be more like 100 miles. This first night of the race is, from a competitive standpoint, the most important. For all of the riders, tonight they will begin to separate their fantasies about what they might have been able to accomplish from the reality of what they'll really be able to do. And already the man who has led for more than 6,000 miles in the more than 6,000 miles of two previous races, Lon Haldeman, is at the front of the pack. The other riders know now that if they want to stay near him, they will go through a night without sleep.
That first sleepless night would take the lead riders into Las Vegas, and from there they would curl up into the Rockies, across the Great Plains and the industrial Midwest, through Appalachia to the Atlantic seaboard. It was a route which mirrored the wondrous variety of American geography.
The Lombardi ethic of winning is everything is not the life force of this race. Instead, there's a marathon ethic. Self-discovery is paramount, and unique personalities surface early on. Lost within a couple of hours of the start, Michael Secrest already showed his manic, nervous side as he rushed to catch up. Lon Haldeman's wife, Susan Notorangelo, had been his headstrong crew chief on his previous crossings, but this year she dropped that role to race herself, tough on herself like she was on her husband. And Lon was already missing her as he talked to Eric Hayden.
You miss not having her in your crew? Yeah. Why? Because she's real efficient and she can get things done. I have a lot of other good people doing it now, too. But, you know, just good having her around because she knows me and knows when I need a kick in the pants and when I need a pat on the back. So, it's helpful.
Haldeman's closest pursuer was a newcomer, 28-year-old Jim Elliott of San Diego. Among various human interest stories in the field, Elliott's was the most compelling. He was an epileptic, a condition which, at least in theory, made the exertion ahead more dangerous for him than for the others. It was an obstacle Elliott's parents said he had been overcoming all his life.
From 5 years old on, Jim understood that it was necessary for him to be on medication, that he had to cooperate. About the time we were discovering Jim's epilepsy, we also had a large number of tests done on him intellectually. He was seeing so many specialists, it just kind of blows my mind.
I know I have a disadvantage, but I don't let that bother me. It just makes me try that much harder.
But the struggle for recognition has at times been painful. A 1983 attempt to qualify for the Race Across America ended with a serious fall, and a memory Elliott would build on for 1984.
Perhaps people without limitations still play it safe, but Jim is not one to accept limitations, and he has certainly exploited his abilities to a degree that kind of dazzles us.
In the months before this race, Elliott took time to set a new record for mileage in a 24-hour period, a goal he spurred himself toward by taping a poster of previous record holder Lon Haldeman to the track, then riding over the face of it 2,000 times.
I think Jim has always been a person that's been educating us as to his abilities. You know, I never really felt that he had the potential. that he has shown. I don't think it was until last year at the John Marino Open that I recognized how much respect he had from the other cyclists, as it were. I didn't take Jim that seriously. You know, they say a prophet is without honor in his own town. Perhaps Jim was without honor in his own house.
Jim has surely shown us that it's not what you have, but what you do with it that really determines the dimensions of what happens in your life.
Lon Haldeman knew about Jim Elliott's riding talent and about the fearlessness that had allowed him to conquer his epilepsy. Now, as darkness began to creep over the desert, Haldeman glanced over his shoulder to watch his pursuer, perhaps reflecting that in 2 previous transcontinental races, no other rider had threatened him significantly beyond the border of California. At 3:45 on the morning of Monday, August 20, Jim Elliott rolled into the neon glare of Las Vegas in first place. It wouldn't take long for the news to travel back along the highway to the other riders that somewhere in the darkness, Elliott had passed Haldeman, that the 1984 race across America would not be another royal procession, but rather a real race from one end of the country to the other. As morning of the race's second day broke over the Virgin River Gorge at the border of Nevada and Arizona, Lon Haldeman again found himself in the lead. Haldeman had insisted before leaving California that it meant nothing to him to be in front, but few of the other riders took him seriously. Not Jim Elliott, who had stopped to rest just past Las Vegas and now was in 5th place, and not Michael Secrest, who for the second year in a row had boldly proclaimed his own hopes for victory. Though an early navigation error had dropped him as far back as 16th, Secrest was now in 2nd place and gaining.
At the back of the pack, reality was setting in. Lofty visions of days ahead gave way to struggling through the minutes.
Are we feeling physically? Any problems at all?
Physically, I'm okay. You know what it is? It's just so boring out here, and I'm the lively guy. I got Michael Jackson blaring, and I just trying to stay awake.
Oh, you're gonna love the Midwest then, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I hear it's real neat. We have a TV watch. I'm gonna watch my soaps.
The Belgian Herman de Monk, with 3 decades of road racing behind him, quickly foresaw the duress to come and indulged himself in sit-down meals instead of eating on the go like the others. Psychologically, these were the toughest days. Days 2, 3, 4, 5. There's no freshness left after 24 hours, continuous racing. How could there be? Everything hurts. It all seems impossible, or at least unlikely, that 8 or 9 or 10 of these same days remain. What sport demands 24 continuous hours and leaves you having barely made a dent in the total distance?
Under a gathering rainstorm at the front of the pack, Michael Secrest was now within 3 miles of Lon Haldeman.
You would be leading had it not been for the little mishap early in the race.
Well, I guess that would be a safe assumption. Yes.
But that doesn't bother you anymore.
No, because I think these guys knowing that Secrest has been coming, all they hear is knocking them down one at a time, and they've got to think about me. So that's good. I like to, if I can play on their mind, if they think about me instead of the race, then that's to my benefit.
So, for psychological purposes of dealing with Lon, you would like to take the lead and never surrender it.
Exactly. He's never been in that position before. He's tough. obviously, mentally and physically, but when you've never been in that position, especially what happened and coming from behind like this, he's got to be shaking his head, I think, wondering, what can I do?
What are you going to say to him when you go by?
Not a thing. Lon and I don't talk to one another. He didn't say anything to me before the race, and I didn't say anything to him, and didn't look at one another, and that's fine by me. I'll just let my performance do the talking this year.
Do you ever talk to the other riders?
Well, when I see him.
Secrest says you don't talk to him. Secrest says you don't talk to him before the race, and you don't talk to him during the race. Is there any reason?
I never see him during the race.
Late on the afternoon of that second day, Haldeman paused at a Utah highway intersection to change into rain gear. With the exception of his wife, Susan, now somewhere on a bicycle behind him, his support crew was made up of the same friends and family members who had shepherded him across the country twice before. They handled their work with ease for now. The riders had left interstate highways behind for a while. The next 2 days would be spent in serpentine climb up into the Rockies, across Loveland Pass to Denver, then down onto the flat heartland of America. It was a ride Lon Haldeman had gotten used to taking alone, but this year he would have company. As Haldeman pulled away into the clear mountain raindrops that Monday, Michael Secrest and his support vehicles crept onto the horizon behind him.
The lay of the land is a given foe at the outset, but the weather, fickle and somehow usually unfavorable, must be confronted with high-tech gear, creativity, and even humor. By the second day, it's true, they had been spared the searing western heat of normal years, but downpours and headwinds were the unwelcome replacement. Some say that Murphy's Law always holds true in endurance events. Whatever might go wrong, does. On that second day, way back in the still dry terrain, upbeat character Steve Cachadorian was immersed in the experience, his crew preparing drinks with an outboard motor. Do you have a motorhome?
No. The van and the Subaru, that's it.
Wow, are you the only team here that's working without a motorhome?
Looks like it.
I believe so.
Looks like it. I've tried to watch some of the other riders, but I don't. That's all I do.
Is that why Steve hangs out on the side of the road when he takes a break?
He hasn't had too many, so we're giving him all the best we can. This is the best we can do right now.
Maybe we can get the money back.
Well, I paid for this myself. I mean, Darla and I, we had garage sales, we had car washes, I went door to door, I went to everybody, and I collected about $1,000. Well, I spent that much to try to collect. So, actually, I paid for everything. I mean, I've taken every cent I've ever owned and put it into this race, so I'm gonna go see Atlantic City. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And I'll do it by bike.
Lon Haldeman pressed on into the rain, still leading. Later that night, 700 miles into the race, Michael Secrest passed him. There were still 2,300 miles to go to Atlantic City. Introducing pioneers and frontiersmen of 19th century America learned quickly, or knew instinctively, how to accept the hardships of the desert West. Through heat and dust and days without fresh water, they turned their backs to the sun and pressed on. One woman had entered the race across America in 1983, and an early support vehicle accident had knocked her out of it. But this year there were 4, all of them still rolling on day 2.
The women pioneers of this worthy endeavor were headed by the holder of the women's transcontinental record, Susan Notorangelo. She had crossed solo in 11 days, 16 hours, 15 minutes, and she had led husband Lon's crew on the 82 and 83 races. The only negative for Susan coming into the race were a few extra pounds that could hurt her, especially climbing. Shelby Hayden Clifton might have come into the race with the opposite problem, a very low body fat percentage, not much storage fuel to rely on. Anyone to drop further back than 36 hours off the lead after the Mississippi would technically be out of the race. Pat Hines had this thought.
I'm sticking to my game plan. I don't care what anyone does. This is the first for me.
Do you care about the 36-hour in last place from the beginning of the race, Elaine Mariole fully embodied the spirit of the adventure.
Oh, sure. I'll keep on going. I mean, for me, the race was just an opportunity to do this with a lot of other people. I have sort of mixed feelings about the role, but, you know, I came here to go across the country, and whether or not they say I'm official, I'm still going to go. I think it's a great adventure.
While vacationing with her family at Yosemite, a ritual every year since she was 4, Elaine revealed her scanty athletic background. She has 6 brothers, all jocks, but never took up sports herself until the triathlon caught her eye a year and a half before this race. She was bored with the swimming and running, but really clicked on a bike, and the family jumped full tilt behind her.
Well, I'm the oldest of 11 children, and I'm very proud of that. We were all raised with a tremendous amount of independence and tried to develop a sense of ourselves, and every single one of the kids is doing something different. And I'd say that, you know, having a close family, I don't know, it's just great. Yeah, my folks are really supportive.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, thank you.
Hey, guess what? They're still all burning.
Do it.
To compare her cycling knowledge to anyone else's in the field would be ludicrous, but for a 26-year-old, her knowledge of self is considerable.
I do it because I love it. The race is too long to do it for any other reason. You have to like what you're doing, and you have to be getting something out of it that's personal, that means something, that's very private. I think I'm a better person for it. I think that I've become a lot stronger person. It's changed my attitude and my perspective on things. I think more about every day, and I try to make every day worth something. I probably won't be riding a bicycle forever, but the things that I get out of bicycling are things that I can do when I'm 105.
As Elaine Mariole neared the Arizona state border, her crew prepared a small celebration for her, complete with the finish line fashioned out of toilet paper. She was in last place, but she rolled forward mile by mile with a growing sense of wonder and awe at her own accomplishment. Tuesday, August 21, 1984, day 3 of the race across America. In the morning, 31-year-old Michael Secrest of Flint, Michigan rolled out of Utah and into Colorado in first place, now more than an hour ahead of Lon Haldeman. Secrest had found trouble in the Rockies a year before. Now he again approached the race's toughest climb, 225 miles up to Loveland Pass, another 60 miles to Denver and beyond. The leader had been pushing himself hard, convinced he was in condition to do it his way.
I've only been off the bicycle probably a total of, I would say, a half hour at most in 2 days. And I know I can go to Denver without sleep.
What do you think Haldeman's thinking right now?
Well, I guess he was just, all the time he couldn't drop me. The only thing I can think of is when he was climbing that 26-mile climb, and his crew kept telling him, obviously, he's coming. Figure, you're in a situation, there's absolutely nothing you can do. I mean, it was just, I was going to catch him. And I guess it's just kind of one of those, shake your head, well, what do I do now?
What Haldeman was doing now was rolling along in Utah, insisting he was unperturbed by Secrest's lead.
Hey, Lon, are you a little bit surprised with Michael's progress? Secrest?
Yeah.
Well, not especially. I mean, he's just there because he's not pacing himself. You know, I'm more worried about Pensyres and Shermer.
You're going to stick with your same game plan and not really worry about Secrest at all?
Yeah, I mean, he's riding so crazy. Yesterday afternoon, he was really wasted, and then You know, he just kept going. I don't know what he's going to do. There's no way he's going to hold that pace. Holding up all right? Yeah, I feel, you know, actually pretty good. Maybe I should be pushing myself harder. I don't know.
Haldeman had made reference to two old friends and rivals. One was Pete Pensyres, a 41-year-old nuclear engineer from Fallbrook, California, who had come from back in the pack to finish a surprising second to Haldeman the year before. Pensyres' classic tortoise and hare strategy had dropped him back among the slower riders on the first 2 days of this race. But now he had moved up to dice with Jim Elliott for third place.
He's still rolling along real good. Yeah.
Here in Utah, Pensyres let Elliott go by. But the steady-going engineer remained in the picture. 40 miles behind Secrest, his mind on Atlantic City. The other rider who worried Lon Haldeman was Michael Shermer, who had chased the champion into Ohio before succumbing to a stiff neck the year before. Like all the others, Shermer chose to discount Secrest's chances of keeping up the pace.
I've heard what's going on up there. Pretty intense riding, huh? Actually, this is working out real well, though this sounds like a bit of a rationalization. There's a good possibility they'll burn themselves out. And, you know, I'm taking care of my legs, I'm taking care of my hands, pacing myself to do 320 a day. That's a 9-day, 14-hour record. And that's when I'm going to get there. And I don't know if Secrest can maintain, you know, Secrest, I can just picture him down in the drops just, you know, how long can you keep that up for? I can't.
It was a good question. As the riders reached a part of this country where courage has historically been measured in death, they might have compared themselves to the unlucky settlers whose wagons turned up empty on the range, or to the buffalo, who were sacrificed in sorrow and in pity, or to the noble Indians, who fought vainly against the tide of civilization to keep what they had always had. As they reached this part of the West, the riders who had left a sunny pier in Huntington Beach, California so long ago might well have thought of quitting, and some did.
Toward the back of the pack, there were problems galore. 2 people had succumbed to the monstrous effort by day 3 and were out. Rick Bozet had crashed outside Vegas and was now suffering with knee pain, looking desperately to hook up with a specialist along the route. And the man who designed this race in the first place, John Marino, was forced, also with a bad knee, to be the 3rd person to drop out.
And I was trying to rest it and ride at the same time, but the problem is with every stroke you have to bend your knee. So I started riding with one leg, hoping that I could keep it straight.
You actually took the crank off the other pedal?
Yeah, I took the crank off the left side and just kind of rested my leg just to give it some rest. But the problem there is that with each pedal stroke, I had to lift my right leg up to get it back to push again, and then that became pretty tiring, and I could only move along at about 2 miles an hour.
You're disappointed, I know.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. That's part of the race that I created.
So now John Marino, the one-time minor league ball player whose rehabilitation for a fractured spine had put him on a bicycle, returned to his duties as race organizer and began to track the leaders. Michael Secrest looked okay, but he had a rash in his crotch. He was coming down with a cold, and the 12,000-foot climb to Loveland Pass lay just ahead. It is a poetic geographic coincidence of the race across America that its most demanding physical challenge, the 12,000-foot ascent to Colorado's Loveland Pass, occurs in the first third of the crossing. One more night without sleep would leave most riders too sapped to make it over. It was 2:30 in the morning on day 4 when Lon Haldeman emerged from a brief rest in his support van in Dillon, Colorado, and boarded his bike for the 15-mile ride to the mountaintop.
What kind of race now?
All right.
Good. Okay.
Number 1.
Go get him.
All right, all right, all right.
Go, 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 go.
Somewhere in the darkness of that evening, Haldeman had caught up to Michael Secrest. Now Secrest lay sleeping in his own trailer, parked nearby. Once underway, Haldeman's climb would take more than 2 hours. when he reached the summit, there was little of the joy and fulfillment which had greeted him there on the same occasion a year before. Now there was only a sense of urgency about getting down the other side, and mounting evidence that without his wife Susan's guiding hand, his support crew was starting to lose its grip.
Good going, man. Put this off. Okay. Okay. Just pull it inside out. Just pull it back inside out. Got it.
Spent from a 2-hour climb, resistance low in the 30-degree cold, frustrated with his disorganized crew, and perhaps missing Susan's pushing authority more than even he anticipated, Lon reached a low, rare for him, of infantile complaining.
All right here? Yeah, I'm doing it right here. So your head in. Stand a little bit. Get through it, everybody. Conked out. Oh. Get a scarf, too. Get a scarf. You got my t-shirt?
The polypropylene one.
It's not what I wanted. There's a gray one
to keep you warm, and it's like a turtleneck.
You got a t-shirt? Where's my t-shirt? You got a t-shirt?
Oh, get a t-shirt. Come on.
I need more bolts in that.
Okay, can you put this on first, then t-shirt?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you put this Gore-Tex back on?
No, where's my bomber jacket?
Okay, we'll get the bomber jacket.
I mean, we've gone through that about 6 times. Hey, get the gloves out too, Frank.
You want to take off those and put on these?
Frank, you're going with me, right?
I'm going with you, right?
Who's driving the motorhome?
I have no idea.
We didn't, somebody like that. About it? We'll get a shot.
Looking real good, Lon. Looking real good. I did get those gloves off first, Dad.
And what happened to... Where's those gray gloves? Nobody got the gray gloves?
And the gray ones are in the sling. I thought you just brought them up here.
Yeah, where are they?
Which one, the
gray gloves?
The gray gloves.
Gray gloves.
You want these off? Okay, yeah. I gotta find some pants. It's cold. Yeah.
Okay. I'm ready to go.
All right.
Okay,
you're going. Okay, we're coming through.
Good luck.
All right.
More than 200 miles behind her husband, Susan Notorangelo was battling Shelby Hayden Clifton for the lead among women. But by daylight, the morning of day 4, her mind was wandering to the front of the pack.
You see my husband?
I have not seen him personally, but I will today.
Tell him I love him.
Hours after his cranky crossing at Loveland Pass, Lon Haldeman was rumbling like a slow freight train through Colorado flatlands. With a burst reminiscent of those which had buried all opposition in 2 previous races, Haldeman had put 3 hours between himself and Michael Secrest, who was himself another 2 or 3 hours up on Elliott and Pensyres. Now almost into Nebraska, he was foregoing sleep and pounding away in high gears. Haldeman and his 3 pursuers could revel for a few hours in the realization that the torture of the Rockies was now behind them, and that 1,500 miles of flatland stretched out between here and West Virginia. As yet, no other rider had crested Loveland Pass.
Regardless of respective geographical progress, by day 4, 18 individuals strewn across a few states now were subjects of serious sleep deprivation, aching muscles, sore knees, and numb hands. Herman de Monk, the Belgian, wasn't a complainer, but at 45, he admitted he would have liked to have tackled this, the most difficult race he had ever entered, a few years back. How are you doing?
Oh, my body is fine. But, here.
Sore?
Yeah. Very hot. I am good. On the flat. But in the mountains. Not so good. 10 years ago, yeah, yes.
You need not ride a bike all day to feel the emotional drain of the race across America. Crew members, photographers, officials, each finds a moment when it first becomes clear what a long way home it is.
Many rivers to
was bitter cold, below 30 degrees in the pre-dawn hours of Thursday, August 23, 1984, when Susan Notorangelo Haldeman wearily groped her bike wheels up the front side of Loveland Pass. Stubborn, wasted, semi-coherent, she had forced her way up to the summit to stay ahead of another woman who was within a few hours to the rear. Now at a spot less than half a mile down the hill to Denver, she would dismount and collapse in a motor home. Hours later, Susan would awaken to find herself more than a full day behind her husband and with little chance of reaching the Mississippi River within 36 hours of the lead. Officially, it was now clear Susan Notorangelo's race would end in St. Louis, though she could go to Atlantic City on her own if she so desired. The same was true of all the other riders in her section of the race, which now meant everyone except the 4 leaders. It is the paradox of America's Great Plains that they mirror Mother Nature's treatment of our country. Pastures of plenty in prosperous times, the soft spot at the toe of the boot when the soil rises up to kick us in the belly. In the race across America, Nebraska and Kansas and Missouri mean dust and wind and heat.
It's a mighty hard road that my poor hand has hold. My poor feet has traveled a hot, dusty road. Out of your dust bowl and westward we rolled, and your desert was hot and your mountains was cold.
It was the 3rd time a field of bike riders had set out in August to race from Pacific to Atlantic. And for the 3rd time, as the race rolled into America's heartland, the leader was a 26-year-old Illinois farm town bike mechanic named Lon Haldeman. Haldeman had built a reputation as one of the most formidable endurance athletes in the world, but now he was being pushed as he had never been pushed before. Just 20 miles, or less than 2 hours behind Haldeman, was 31-year-old Michael Secrest. Overtrained and under-organized a year before, Secrest had come back with new sponsors and a wiser strategy. But with by now familiar bravado and impatience, Michael Secrest could ride as fast as anyone, but his rivals doubted he could do it for 3,000 miles. Behind Secrest, 2 Southern Californians exchanged 3rd and 4th places. For more times than he could count, Jim Elliott had ridden past Pete Pensyres, as he had just done here. As Pensyres told Eric Hyden, he could afford to bide his time for now.
Not too scenic out here.
No, in fact, it looks the same as it did this morning and yesterday, and tomorrow, and the next day.
Are you really at all concerned about winning? You just want to put in your best effort?
Oh, I'd love to win it. I really would. That would be probably the biggest thrill of my life. But, you know, the goal is to do as good as I can. And if I win it, that's, you know, it'd just be a bonus.
Right.
But there's a lot of other people here that they're still capable of doing it. So, the race doesn't even start until we get to the Mississippi River anyway. You know, we're not even halfway into this thing.
By late that day, Lon Haldeman was in Oberlin, Kansas, with 1,370 miles behind him and 1,677 left to the finish in Atlantic City. There were 17 other riders strung out along 400 miles of highways behind him.
Elaine Mariol continued to stake her claim of last place and to refresh anyone within earshot with her attitude of enjoy the moment.
Have you ever felt so far that you're just going to trash the whole thing and forget about it?
Oh, that was today.
More like 4 times.
Yeah, more like 10 times a day.
So you get up and get on the road and just wind it out of Denver. No, I haven't gotten there yet. Out of what's that place, Green River? Yeah, all the flats. You could just see things a miles and miles away. It's great. And I had a good old time. And then after about 8 or 10 hours of that, you start to get a little slow. Get a little tired. and the funniest part is that I find that surprising. You know? No reasonable person. The more I think about this, it still hasn't sunk in that this is 3,000 miles long. You know, I've already gone almost 1,000, and the idea of racing across the United States is sheer lunacy.
If it was lunacy for anyone, certainly it was lunacy for 28-year-old Jim Elliott, riding more than 20 hours a day and swallowing medication to control his epilepsy. As he made his way through the cornfields of Kansas, Elliott passed Michael Secrest and for the first time in 3 days, moved into second place. He wouldn't savor the accomplishment long. Later in the darkness, Secrest would return the favor, and their two caravans of support vehicles would again politely exchange positions on the shoulder of a rural highway. And so they rolled toward Missouri, Elliott and Secrest, hopscotching from county to county, tantalized by the knowledge that Haldeman was just ahead, but for now, unable to catch him. Closed in on the Mississippi River, a handful of riders at the race's tail end were still in Colorado, trying to finish the drive to the top of Loveland Pass. Of 19 men and 4 women who had left the pier at Huntington Beach, California 5 days before, 6 men had now dropped out. 5 riders had negotiated the 12,000-foot climb to the top of the Rockies quickly enough to move forward as a lead group. The remaining 12 racers and their crew members now faced a disappointing prospect. An official rule specified that anyone who fell 36 hours off the lead beyond the Mississippi would be dropped. It was now clear that if any of the trailing riders wanted to fulfill the dream of reaching Atlantic City, they would have to do so without the support of the race organization. So far, that in itself hadn't stopped anyone. In 2 preceding years, no woman had finished the race. But now, with the leaders halfway home, 4 women were still on their bicycles and riding.
One woman was peddling out a personal vendetta from within and continued unconcerned with her race position. She was Pat Hines. To her, finishing this race symbolized the pride and chutzpah she had never dug down for before. More than once in the Hawaiian triathlon, Pat was long on talent, short on staying power. She hobbled and tried to overcome a nasty ankle fracture. It's not that she should have finished, it was the fact that she didn't that haunted her. She put herself now to an even tougher test, not to quit the race across America.
You're doing it.
But quit on Tuesday.
Why?
Well, I fell, and I had a little trouble with my butt. My right knee on that one big climb over by, God knows where it was, but I was hurting, and and I got caught in the rain, and I said, great, let's just go home, guys. And the crew said, forget it. We're going on. We're going to Atlantic City, so you get back from the bike. I was real shocked. And I cried for like the first 3 hours back, going up to Carlos City's Linden to One, some city out there, just crying and hallucinating, and what am I doing this for? This is crazy, and have my speeches all planned for my sponsors. I'll cry and they'll feel sorry for me. And it was really interesting. It sounded so familiar. And to break that pattern was real important to me.
Just as Pat Hines was refusing to quit the climb to Loveland Pass, 100 yards up the mountain, Steve Cachadorian was saying no to the temptation to quit himself. For the leaders, Loveland Pass might have been arduous, but just another point on the map. For the back of the pack, conquering this mountain was almost superhuman.
All right, now tell us what you think of the race. It's a good race?
It's a heck of a race. It's by far the most demanding mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally task anybody, I don't care who it is, could ever take. And I'm so proud of myself that I made it to here at Sickney, because I was a bumble putz a year ago. And I feel like Adonis right now. I couldn't even see back there until you guys came up, and you're like new life to me. This new face. My poor crew's heard me crying for the last, 200 miles. I keep throwing my bike down, but I gotta keep going. I have to.
Have you had
I paid for this.
Have you had even a faint trace of wanting to give it up?
Oh yeah, I was in the car this morning, freaking out, and I looked at my fiance's face. I looked at her face, and I just said, the sponsors, they helped me. She's the one that helped me get here, and I couldn't let her down. So I just got on the bike and started riding. I'm not in last place, and I wouldn't care if I was.
Are you proud of him?
I'm so proud. All the way up Vail Summit, tears were just rolling down my face. It was incredible.
You still getting along with him pretty well?
Yeah, we made a truce 3 days before the race that we weren't going to get into any argument. And we've done pretty good. Actually, we've done pretty good. I had to hold back a little bit, but we've done pretty good.
Yeah, I made it. Yeah.
Downhill all the way. Thank you for my time. That was beautiful. Thank you. Oh, what a place. Keep the cake, huh? Downhill.
What a hill.
That's the biggest one.
I love you. I made it to here. Oh, what a fight. What a fight. I wish it was over now, but it's not. Let's go on.
It's all downhill from now.
Okay, let's change.
Okay.
I made it. I'm stoked.
Oh, where have you been, my blue-eyed son? And where have you been, my darling young one? I've stumbled on the side of 12 misty mountains. I've walked and I crawled on 6 crooked highways. I've stepped in the middle of 7 side forests. I've been out in front of a dozen dead oceans. I've been 10,000 miles in the mouth of a graveyard. And it's a hard, it's a hard, it's a hard, it's a hard, it's a hard rain you're gonna fall.
On the afternoon of day 6, Friday, race leader Lon Haldeman cruised through Kansas City and past Harry Truman's house in Independence, Missouri.
And what'll you do now, my blue-eyed son? And what'll you do now, my darling young one? I'm a-going back out for the rain starts a-falling.
We're back. Oh, great. How you doing? Terrible. Really? Oh, what's wrong? Everything. Tired.
And it's a hard, it's a hard.
With Haldeman now pressing on into Missouri, his wife, Susan Notorangelo, found herself 400 miles behind in Oberlin, Kansas.
They're gonna fall.
Obviously not in the same shape of her record-crossing days, Susan had pumped such an effort into ascending Loveland Pass that even the flats of Kansas came to pose a strain afterwards. Legs sore and out of breath, she was running out of positive attitude.
Susan, are you still feeling the effects body-wise from the climb up Loveland Pass?
I think so. I think the muscles are so tired. So we just went to bed.
Did you sleep a couple hours?
5.
Taking your goals very short term at this point? Hour by hour? Half day by half day instead of, you know, the whole thing at once?
No. Kansas is... We just got into it. I don't know a lot of the cities yet. Gotta think about it. But race is still a hole for me to get to Atlantic City.
Oh, what did you see, my blue-eyed son? And what did you see, my darling young one? I saw a new boy.
Late that night, in Missouri, Lon Haldeman's character began to show a perceptible change.
I saw a highway diamonds with nobody on it.
I had a really weird experience last night. I almost became like another person. I looked back on the race like a deja vu of what was happening. I was predicting things for several days of what was going to happen at what a time, and I'd write them down, and they'd happen. It was kind of weird.
In 3 years and 7,500 miles of riding in the race across America, it was Haldeman's first admission of anything approaching a psychic experience. By the following day, as he closed in on St. Louis, accompanied by a gaggle of local riders, it was still preying on his mind, a vision of something which may or may not have happened or could happen to him.
It's like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You know, it's kind of strange, really, because it wasn't like an hallucinating thing, because I was able to rationalize through the whole procedure and write things down and do stuff like that. So it was just kind of strange. And so what it left me with this morning, after I went through a couple different changes, discussions with crew members about, you know, give me my wallet and I'll meet you there on myself, you know, that kind of stuff. Either this last half of the race is going to go very well, or it's going to go very poorly. So I'm just kind of waiting to see. I've got this thing in the back of my head that's kind of got the game plan all played out already. And one chapter of it says it's going to go very good, and the other chapter of it says it's not going to go very good. So now I just kind of wait and see what happens.
It was too early to say that Haldeman was on the verge of collapse, but this Saturday morning building demolition just as he approached St. Louis lent an eerie shadow to the aura now surrounding him. Lon Haldeman was pulling into his wife's hometown, where he had lived most of the preceding year, but his lead had melted from 3 hours 40 minutes down to just 40 minutes, and the simple, infallible everyman of years past was now talking like a character from a Stephen King novel. Day 7 began with 16 of the original 23 riders still in the race. 2 more had dropped out after calculating their slim chances of escaping the 36-hour drop rule. Lon Haldeman reached the Mississippi River at 11 minutes past 4 o'clock in the afternoon Central Time. He was again beginning to pad the lead, which had gotten so narrow earlier in the day. And as he rolled into his home state of Illinois, he could look forward to the occasional companionship of friends and biking acquaintances he had gathered through his years of pedaling up farm country highways. Behind Haldeman, Michael Secrest kept a grim hold on second place. Still less than 2.5 hours off the lead, Secrest could justifiably argue that his chances to win were better than ever. But his voice was cracking, his crew was tired, and even his lusty ambition was starting to fade. If anyone looked good at the Big River, it was 41-year-old Pete Pensyres. Watching him roll up, less than a half hour behind Secrest, you were struck by something he had said 2 days before. The race doesn't begin until you reach the Mississippi. The fourth man to reach the bridge was Jim Elliott. Like Secrest, he didn't look as good as his position in the race might have led you to expect. He had never ridden this far before, so every one of the 1,022 miles from here to Atlantic City would enhance his education. 2 more riders left the race that Saturday. Belgian Herman de Monk, who had only been introduced to his support crew the night before leaving the pier in Huntington Beach, decided he had seen enough of America by bicycle. And spunky Steve Cachadurian elected to pack up his growing pride and go home to focus on wedding plans. No one could ever say he didn't make it up Loveland Pass. All 4 women were hanging in, but Susan Notorangelo Haldeman and her all-woman crew were focusing less and less on her progress and asking more and more questions about what was happening to Lon Haldeman at the front of the pack. Almost 600 miles behind the leader, Elaine Mariol's adventure continued. the flowers on her handlebars, an outward symbol of the incalculable joy welling up within her. There were 3 days and 1,000 miles left before a winner would be decided. In both previous transcontinental races, Lon Haldeman had ridden alone and unchallenged from the Mississippi to the Atlantic. But this race was different. Though Haldeman was covering the distance more rapidly than ever, he hadn't been able to put the field away. And now his mind was playing tricks on him. Would he hold on to win again? You'll see on the conclusion of the Race Across America 1 week from today on ABC's Wide World of Sports.
At the midway point of the 7th day of the 3rd annual transcontinental bicycle race from the shores of the Pacific Ocean to a beach next to the Atlantic, the Race Across America. Behind me, Lon Haldeman, pedaling through his own home state of Illinois, is trying to show for the 3rd time that he, more than any other of the handful of men and women who have ever attempted an experience like this, possesses the necessary attributes of strength, cycling skill, concentration, and the all-encompassing term, endurance. But winning and losing are really only small parts of this story. What matters most between the starting line in Huntington Beach, California, and the finish in Atlantic City, New Jersey, is the journey, the adventure in life, the unique tour of this vast nation, the race across America.
In 1982 and 1983, Diana Nyad and I covered the first 2 organized transcontinental bicycle races in this country for ABC's Wide World of Sports. In August of 1984, together, we covered the 3rd Race Across America. Sunday, August 19, 1984. 2-time defending champion Lon Haldeman led a field of 19 men and 4 women off a California pier for the start of the 3rd bicycle race across America. The destination, Atlantic City, New Jersey, 15 states and more than 3,000 highway miles away. In each of 2 previous transcontinental bike races, Haldeman had ridden away from his opposition on the first day and had never been closely threatened again. But this race could quickly be seen to be different. Riding in unusually cool desert weather for the first 2 days, Haldeman frequently surrendered the lead, first to a 28-year-old newcomer named Jim Elliott, then to 31-year-old Michael Secrest, who had finished in 3rd place a year before. Finally, on the morning of day 4, Haldeman seized the lead from Secrest in the Rockies and carried it across the Mississippi River. By day 7, 13 other riders remained on their bikes behind him, most of them intent only on somehow finishing the trip. But at the front of the pack, the race was very much alive, and Lon Haldeman was having psychic visions of what might unfold before him.
Either this last half of the race is going to go very well, or it's going to go very poorly. So I'm just kind of waiting to see.
Though Michael Secrest was second to reach the Mississippi, the man who now seemed to pose the greatest threat to Haldeman came along 23 minutes behind Secrest. 41-year-old Pete Pensyres had dawdled through the western states a year before, then come on with a rush to finish second. Now he was coming from behind again. A few miles east of the Big River, he moved past Secrest into 2nd place.
I can't even explain it, but I told you before that, the race starts at the Mississippi River, and something happened when I crossed the river. And I've been feeling good ever since then. I haven't felt it. I just feel like this, there's a power flow in me that I can't explain.
Biker's high.
Must be. And I know it probably won't last. But the other thing I know for sure is if I sit down, it'll go away. So I'm going to use it.
It was time now to test Lon Haldeman's newfound psychic powers, to see if he could somehow have become aware of which rider had suddenly moved into 2nd place behind him.
Pensyres.
Did you know that?
No, because I knew he would be. He's the main guy that would be coming on strong at the end. How far back is he? We can't tell.
Can't tell you, but I can tell you that you're right. Pensyres is in 2nd place.
As that night went on, Haldeman crept all the way through Illinois and into Indiana, stretching his lead over Pensyres to nearly 4 hours. But he sacrificed sleep to do it, a step he had already taken on at least 2 previous occasions in the race. For his part, Pensyres did stop to rest. He was on schedule. The next step would be to try to make contact with Haldeman so he could challenge the leader where he wanted to, in the mountains of West Virginia. In the Race Across America, we returned to the race on the morning of day 9. Lon Haldeman has held the lead through Indiana and Ohio and is entering West Virginia. But headaches and double vision problems are giving him difficulty. Very late on the night of day 8, Haldeman actually rode his bike off the side of the road and down an embankment in Ohio. And 41-year-old nuclear engineer Pete Pensyres from Fallbrook, California, is pressuring him mightily now from behind. Perhaps the most significant new development is that Haldeman's wife, Susan Notorangelo, dropped out of the race in St. Louis and drove forward in a car to catch up to her husband. In the 2 preceding years, Susan's astute management of Lon's support crew has contributed to his victories. Now it remained to be seen if she would observe a race rule which forbade her to participate actively in his efforts.
Oh, the green rolling hills of West Virginia.
There's a period of several days in the middle of the race across America when you begin to wonder if this trip will ever end. Then there's a moment which snaps you out of it, when Midwest suddenly becomes East on the suspension bridge from Belpre, Ohio into Parkersburg, West Virginia.
They are expecting the leader, Lon Haldeman, about 10:30 today. But again, the route for you, they'll come across the Memorial Bridge, they'll go down Garfield Avenue, a left at the post office, then they'll go to the community bank, they'll take a right, and then they'll head up Route 50. So if you're interested in seeing part of this 3,000-mile bicycle race across America, you'll be able to do it in your car or head on your bicycle or whatever and get out and help welcome the riders to town.
As a groggy Lon Haldeman rode through Parkersburg that Monday morning, August 27, local police provided escort for his caravan. There was a race rule which forbade a rider to seek such help, but Haldeman didn't decline the hospitality. Behind Haldeman, Pensyres was coming. He had made up a startling piece of distance in the night, and the lead, which had been up to 4 hours a day before, was now down to less than an hour. As he pulled into West Virginia, Pensyres rolled right by Susan Notorangelo, who had driven all night with her crew from St. Louis to catch up to her husband.
We opened the door to the VW van, and I was leaning out, and he goes, "Stop, stop!" I was like, "Wait a minute, we can't stop. It's the middle of the road. You're in the middle of a hill." And he hugged me. He didn't ask me why or anything. He just hugged me. And
that was a moment of some emotion for both of you, I'm sure.
I missed him a whole lot. I admit it.
You get off the bike to say hello?
Yep. Yep, she drove up in the van and signaled her over and gave her a hug and a few tears. Right away she told me to get back on my bike. Said, got to get this over with first.
Did this become your official or unofficial crew chief?
Well, could probably take things over whether that was the plan or not. But, yeah, she's going to be helping out now.
Does it give you a sense of confidence to know she's here?
Yeah, it's kind of like the head coach is back in the game.
Pete Pensyres took many people aback weeks before the start of the race when he said that Haldeman might be too young yet to ride his best race. But now, on day 9, young skeptics of 41-year-olds were changing their minds.
You seem to be picking up some ground, though. What do you know about Haldeman at this point?
Well, I've heard a lot of rumors from people that have ridden with him that come back to ride with me. And he's apparently got some kind of a problem because we're really gaining time on him. The last check I had on him, we're about an hour back now.
You must feel pretty optimistic.
At the rate we're catching him, we should catch him before dark. And if I had to settle this anywhere, this is the place I'd pick.
Pete spent 2/3 of the race unwilling to commit himself to match pace with the leaders, while Lon was so strong that he was worried about not pushing hard enough. Now, Lon was indeed in trouble. He was complaining frequently of vision problems and attendant headaches, while Pete was zooming in on his vulnerability. The gap was narrowing quickly, and everyone in both camps nervously knew that this race could go either way.
My daddy said, don't ever be a miner, for a miner's grave is all you'll ever know.
many in West Virginia, hard times are all the time. For Lon Haldeman, the hardest times had now begun. In mid-afternoon, the incumbent legend of marathon bike racing was off his bike on the shoulder of Highway 50, complaining of double vision.
Those images going double. And I was coming down the hills, I just noticed a consistent pattern when I did it. Like when you look out over the top of your glasses when you're in a tuck, it does it, and then it doesn't go away until you massage the the pupils, and it's I guess it's just stress related.
This is the first trip you've ever experienced that on?
Yeah, I've never had any eye problems before, but I've noticed it at night. Really, since the second night of the trip, I looked down and the road would look like the crease in a book, and I'd see two separate halves, and I thought it was just a kind of a weird floating sensation because you saw an image above an image, and it would just go away after I went to sleep for half an hour or so. Like reading your merino racks, I can almost see two separate merino racks. There's that much distortion. Yeah, well,
just put your head down a little bit.
I mean, I don't have any pinched nerve problems in my neck or anything that's kind of that I could pinpoint it to. What would be causing it?
How's that feel, then?
It feels fine.
Got some shampoo? We'll take care of you right here. Rub your head a little bit.
Now, as the Haldeman caravan sat parked on the roadside, Pete Pensyres rolled up the hill behind it. But even as Haldeman's father stepped out to cheerfully wave him by, Pensyres remained unaware he was taking over the lead. He assumed the champion was still on his bike somewhere up ahead. Meanwhile, Pensyres' wife Joanne parked her vehicle and stepped out to complain to the Haldeman crew about the police escort Lon had enjoyed in Parkersburg.
So anyway, but I did call him because I thought we should all know, what the rule was, because either we could all have him or we all couldn't. And he said that he thought, under the circumstances, since it was a close race, we should make a definite ruling and we should verbally decline all but Atlantic City.
Well, that's great if you can get up and verbally decline it. I could not do so.
Yeah. Okay.
But with the situation with all the different vehicles there, filming,
well, if at all possible, certainly there's
well, I'm going to call Bob the first chance I get.
Yeah.
How's Pete doing?
He seems fine so far, but he's definitely a tired man.
Where's the bike? Which way's the bike? Right up in front of the vehicle.
Right
in front of the vehicle.
Yeah.
Can you see? Okay, this double vision. Your helmet and your
Surprised at seeing Lon emerge from his camper, Joanne Pensyres realized at this instant that her husband had actually taken the lead for the first time, and that a fair and talented friend was in real trouble. The emotions of a 2-year preparation and the exhaustion of a 9-day marathon came tumbling down in tears.
Don't worry about it. That's okay. No, it's just one of those things we had no control about. Yeah, for all I knew, it was just a situation where they're trying to allow no hazards to pass the traffic.
What happened?
Nothing.
You're all right.
Just had a situation.
Competitors.
He's a good guy. He's a good guy.
That's all right. Pete's worked hard, too.
You darn betcha.
You darn right. You get up there and get moving with me.
Keep moving.
Good luck.
Good deal.
Now 10 minutes had passed since Haldeman had been removed from the role of the hunted and placed in the position of the hunter. He was ready to roll again, though as yet no one had figured out what was causing his vision problems or what would make them go away. For the sake of change, his crew chief took away the goggles he had been wearing since the beginning of the race.
Your health is more important than this whole race.
I'm not putting these on now.
No, why don't you walk it off? Put them in the car. The vitals again, just pull over. That's all you can do.
Yeah, right.
You know, Mr. As long as you're feeling good, go as long as you can. But if you can't, you can't. That's all. No sense crashing.
Okay.
Wait. Go about it a little bit?
In the 2 years since the Race Across America was first created, Lon Haldeman had never before been in this situation. There was some urgency in his tempo as he pulled away, but there was a curious ambivalence as well. It was as though Lon's previously indomitable will to lead had temporarily been quenched. For the moment, he seemed almost relieved to find that after 2 years of being a target for his rivals, and after 2,500 miles of controlling this race, he was suddenly an underdog. After less than an hour on the bike, he was off of it again.
You seeing double still?
Hurry.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So, are you going to sleep and rest, or are you just stopping to eat?
Right now, we just stopped to eat because once you get up on those hills, and you can't eat while you're climbing those hills. So we just ate.
So you're more concerned about the danger of riding in traffic with furry vision than the lead that you're spotting the feet now?
Right now, but I'll get back, I hope. I don't know if I can ride that much all night, but I can get back into it, I think. Somebody said it was 10 minutes up the road. I think it's more than that, though.
After 8.5 days and 2,600 miles, the marathon dance of the Race Across America was now into its final chorus. That night in West Virginia would turn out to be the most memorable and dramatic in the race's 3-year history, but not the classic drama which stems from heroic acts, rather the bizarre, off-kilter drama that is played out when people have pushed themselves beyond their rational limits. From the beginning, Pete Pensyres had believed that if he could challenge Lon Haldeman in the mountains of West Virginia, he would have a chance to win. Now he was fulfilling that prophecy, pulling away to a bigger and bigger lead. As for Haldeman, he was struggling. Just before midnight, he found his father running along next to him in the road, urging him to speed up.
We're not going to take second place, Lon, so get moving. Faster, it's exactly that. You're not going as fast as you're capable. Get out and move it.
And though far behind in third place, Michael Secrest had a sense of the strangeness of that Monday night.
Michael?
Oh, is that you?
Hi. Listen, what's going through your sleepy mind?
You know, to do this race on less than 10 hours, I think it's ridiculous. But I think it's the way the race is going to become. Because you get a person like Pete or Lon or myself and keeps pushing and pushing and pushing. And, you know, sooner or later, someone's going to kill themselves.
Secrest had taken a 4.5-hour nap, which had dropped him off the pace. Now Lon Haldeman wanted to sleep, but after only 20 minutes, his crew determined to wake him up. Taking advantage of our cameraman's light, they hinted to him that he had slept through till daylight.
Yeah, it's so bright. It's the sunlight coming up pretty soon. It'll be up in a little while. Let's get up Lon right now. Yeah, I know. You get your bike race.
Step back in the ditch. Lon.
There you go. I want you to get on the bike and ride down the hill. Yeah, right.
Come on. Okay. Come on, Lonnie.
Step up.
I'm going to go get my bike.
There you go. Oh, I thought you needed something.
Pardon?
You want something?
Yes, let's go down the mountain and go to Cumberland today. Sure about this? Sure about this?
Take the bike, man. You've got to be sure. You've got to control it. It's got to be awake.
Up and charge it up.
Come on. Let's go for a bike ride here. Going down the hill. You want to go? Start your engines. If you're not sure, we don't have to go. They can cut this on their darn tape. If you want to ride safe, you got to wake up.
Yeah.
Let's go.
There is a fine line in all extreme endurance events between pushing the athlete to 100% of his potential and pushing him beyond physical or mental safety. No one on Haldeman's team seemed able to discern that fine line at this point.
You want to go to bed, we go to bed. But you got to be able to control it. I know you are. We don't care how long it takes to get to Atlantic City, Lon. We are here because we love you. It doesn't matter if you're crossing in front of Pete or behind Pete, in front of anybody of these guys. We don't just want to see you finish. We want to see you finish whole, in one piece, not screwed up because you hit the dirt. We know. If you're tired, you got to go to bed. Maybe just an hour sleep would be better. Because of that. You want to do it?
We'll do that.
Okay. Well, the motorhome's not here, so we have to roll it on the road until the motorhome gets set up. Let me get the motorhome up here.
Where's Tim?
Yeah.
Did he say anything about what he wanted to try to do for overall time?
No. He never said a word about overall time to me.
Because
Pete's desire is to win. That's the only thing he's ever talked to me about.
And he'll go to sleep as soon as you do. As soon as they find out you're sleeping, he's going to be down. Why do you think he waited so long to pass you? Come on.
All right.
Let's finish this. Then they get the motorhome set up.
It was 3 o'clock in the morning before Susan Notorangelo decided her husband would have to take a longer rest. His parents made a bed in the motorhome. While Haldeman slept, Pete Pensyres was still riding, rapidly putting the hills of West Virginia behind him. He would not rest until he was well into Maryland, and when he finally did go to sleep, he had built a lead of just under 3 full hours. By late afternoon Tuesday, August 28, 1984, day 10 of the race across America, 41-year-old Pete Pensyres of Fallbrook, California, was cruising through the Amish farm country of eastern Pennsylvania in the company of local bicyclists. Well on his way to victory, when he had finished second a year before, he had thought he might be able to come back and win. But he hadn't known for sure.
At daybreak, the disaster Haldeman's crew prayed never to happen happened. He crashed over a suburban curb at 20 miles an hour. And now, his desire to finish no matter what mixed in with his frustration at not being able to solve the vision problem. Shaky, There was now the difficult question as to whether he would go on.
During a race, there is no recovery time. It's just unfortunate it's happened. This is the best shape he has ever been in. Nothing hurts. Well, he did have one wrist swelled up a little bit the other day. He had to let his wristband out, one notch. It's a big deal. But his feet, his seat, his hands, everything. The best shape they've been in all the 4 years we've been going cross country. And something like 7, there's just no way to adjust to it.
So at this point, you really don't know what you're going to do. You have all...
I know what I would recommend, but I don't know what he's going to decide to do. This is what he's going to have to decide along with Sue and members of the crew and so forth. I know how I would feel about it. I'd pull him out of here. The chance of getting racked up just isn't worth it. I don't want to see him with a broken neck, back, or this and that, and he can't ever do this again. It's kind of a sorry situation. But right now, I'm more concerned about his safety than anything else.
Lon's father wanted him to quit. The danger of crashing on a steep downhill at 50 miles an hour was now very real. The race was lost. There was much logic behind a calm, introspective withdrawal from the race. But Lon just doesn't think that way. He was heading for the boardwalk. And Susan, flagrantly disrespectful of the rule of a 15-minute limit for accompanying riders, was not going to let him take a risk and ride alone.
Up ahead, Pensyres could empathize with his friend's difficulties.
There's no way this thing is easy. It's one of the toughest things you can do, which makes one of the reasons it makes it such an incredible challenge. You just never know what's going to happen. You can't predict this thing. I would have never guessed I'd be where I am right now. I'd hope for it, of course, but I couldn't allow myself to really believe it.
Because of Lon Haldeman's place in the race's brief history, interested observers along the road had long ago learned to ask, "Where's Haldeman?" when they wanted to find a leader. But now there was a new leader, and the word was spreading up the last 100 miles of the route to Atlantic City that you could expect to see Pete Pensyres coming through. What you would have seen if you stepped out your front door to look was an unusually calm, precisely systematic man with a rare capacity to stay with one thing for a long time. A man who would be out of place in glitzy Atlantic City had he not come there for a purpose. Pete Pensyres arrived on the outskirts of Atlantic City at 1 a.m. His finishing time of 9 days, 13 hours, and 13 minutes would be the fastest individual transcontinental bicycle crossing ever.
Pete, congratulations.
Thanks very much.
Tremendous accomplishment, not only for a 41-year-old man, as everyone seems to be paying so much attention to, but for anybody. I wonder if the idea that you could win this thing first crept into your mind gradually over the last few days of last year's race, when you made up so many hours on Lon.
Yes, it did, but I don't really think I believed it fully, and I never went into this thing saying, you know, I know I'm going to win this. It was just, hey, if everything goes right, it's a possibility, along with, you know, there's a lot of other people that could possibly do it. I thought I was a possible contender, but, you know, I just never let myself believe it because I didn't want to be disappointed.
Your mother said to me last night, I hope this is his last transcontinental race after all he's 41 years old. Did you ever have the sense that time was running out on you and that it was urgent to go ahead and try to win this year?
Well, not exactly, but this will be the last year I'll do it because it really takes a lot to prepare for it, and we've for the last 2 years been totally involved in it in the summer. It's been a great experience.
I think
but
he's coming.
Have to ask them.
Joanne, are you glad Pete's not going to do it anymore?
Clear, please, clear.
He hasn't said he isn't.
Get gripping.
Oh, did you say you weren't going to do it again?
Yeah.
That's good news.
Come on,
We're
guys.
tired.
Congratulations to all of you on a terrific victory.
For his victory in the race across America, Pete Pensyres received a trophy, a medal on a ribbon around his neck, and $2,500, which had been put up after the race began by a California bike shop. More than 5 hours would pass before Lon Haldeman's weary caravan pulled into the area. It had been only a day and a half since he had relinquished the lead, but it seemed like a week. The mood of the Haldeman family had shifted awkwardly during the ordeal. It was time to reflect.
One question about your father. It seems to us that you are very much out of the mold that he is, the strong, silent, honest character. Do you feel that as you ride, you're inspired by the man that he is and the communication you have together?
Yes, that's, I think, I felt bad when I knew that I wasn't going to be able to win the race. You know, halfway through, I thought, well, I had a chance to win, and every day I think, well, boy, I'd like to really give this trophy to my dad.
Although he's really the one who didn't want you to continue this morning. He was more worried about your health than anyone.
Yeah. That's, I guess, what you know, really disappoints me. Is because I can probably still be doing this for, 20 more years. But, my parents won't be able to be involved, and so I guess that's what's really disappoints me the most, about not being able to win this year.
Oh, but Lon, don't you know how proud they are of you? You know your dad had tears in his eyes this morning.
Well, maybe we'll come back and try it again sometime.
It was late on the 10th full day of the race across America. Of the 23 riders who had left Huntington Beach, one had finished, another was about to, and only 7 more were still on the road behind them.
Way over yonder is a place that I know, where I can find shelter from a hunger and cold.
Atlantic City, New Jersey is a perverse mix of tinsel and tawdriness. In a way, the town mirrored the mood of the Haldemans as Lon rode toward the boardwalk. The bad news was that Susan Notorangelo and a few others in the support crew were having trouble coming to terms with an unexpected setback. The good news, easy to ignore for now, was that the headaches and double vision apparently caused by the discarded goggles were gone, and that Lon Haldeman, no longer depressed, was rising magnanimously to the occasion. As a person, bigger than ever in defeat.
When I get there, the first thing I'll see is the sun shining golden, shining right down on me. Then trouble's gonna lose me.
There you go.
Ta-da.
All right, Peter. Good job.
This guy. Beating each other up all across the country.
Before this day, Lon Haldeman's wife, Susan, hadn't once seen him lose a race. In fact, he'd never lost a race of more than 100 miles, and there had been many before now.
Tired, and you're tired, and that's all. Susie only favored to go by. Yes. You know how it feels? No, I don't think that's it at all. Both of you are burned out right now. Like I said in California, the biggest mistake was you both can't do it at the same time. One or the other, but not both. You both are dependent upon each other, and you feel it's just too much of a hassle to do two of them at one time. It's just too big. And that's why things just don't turn out well. Yeah.
It was afternoon, 7 hours after Haldeman's arrival, when Michael Secrest showed up on the boardwalk. Having finished third the year before, he firmly believed he had learned enough about the race to come back and win it. But now, despite his superior cycling skill, he was third again. His voice cracked and rasping, deep ruts burned into his face. The 31-year-old classical music lover from Flint, Michigan would cross the line at 10 days, 2 hours, and 3 minutes. One of a small handful of people to have twice crossed the United States on a bicycle.
Oh, you're so sweet. One big one.
There had been a time in Indiana when it appeared impossible for Jim Elliott to finish. But the relief which had accompanied the realization he couldn't win had given Elliott the strength necessary to gather himself and roll on into Atlantic City. All of us who had watched him had learned to admire him, and also to understand a little bit better the epileptic condition which he had effectively conquered, despite long days of 350 miles on a bike and 2 hours of sleep. Jim Elliott finished in just under 10 days, 8 hours. He had never ridden nearly so far in his life, but then it has already been a life of hard challenges and hard-earned accomplishments. The fifth official finisher in the race across America was Michael Shermer, the former psychology professor who added to his already widespread reputation as one of the world's best marathon bicyclists with a time of 10 days, 16 and a half hours. Rick Bozé was officially dropped from the race, but came on into Atlantic City anyway, arriving on the 12th day. And of the 4 women who had started the race, 3 kept riding. 24-year-old Shelby Hayden Clifton of Greensboro, North Carolina, rode in obscurity most of the way on her first transcontinental crossing. She was the first woman to cross the Mississippi, and for many days it appeared she would reach Atlantic City alone. But Clifton slowed a bit toward the end, and outside of Philadelphia, she was caught from behind by Pat Hines. The 2 women sprinted together the last 30 miles and arrived on the boardwalk at the same time, nearly 12 days, 21 hours. For Hines especially, it would have been madness to worry about who was first or second. After an athletic career filled with maybes and could-haves, she had finished. When Pete Pensyres had reached Atlantic City, Elaine Mariol was still in St. Louis, not yet across the Mississippi River. But she, too, would make it to the finish of an event she hadn't really fathomed when she entered it.
One thing I would want to say is that I've been absolutely delighted, encouraged, and just plain touched by the number of people that have waved on the highways, given us the thumbs up, and one woman today actually get out of her car on the freeway, and I was on a frontage road, and she said, "Don't give up, honey, don't give up." I just thought, wow, that's great. So I just fired along for an extra 15 miles for her. I don't know her, but she really made me feel good. And that's been the case all across. And so I would want to thank all those folks, even though I don't know them. How'd you know where I was?
Only through luck, the good fortune which gives us the privilege of covering the race across America.